Welcome to Season 4 of the NAC 4 Business Podcast.
Before we get into today's conversation, Canada Growth Network. Here's the math. A full CRM, email marketing, funnels, and automations for less than a coffee a day. That's $47 a month Canadian with a $1 trial to start. If you're building a business and still duct taping tools together, check the link in the show notes.
Something that I want to talk about right off the bat is that I didn't come out of the business womb fully formed when it comes to pricing. I came out of corporate and, Bernie and I had a long conversation about this. I didn't know how to price what I did. In fact, I spent 30 years on Wall Street dealing with lots of big numbers and big deals and whatnot. And I had no idea how to price my own work as when I started my business advisory practice. And there's not a lot of places to go get that help. There's a lot of places to go get accounting help, marketing help, financing help, whatnot. Not a lot of places to go get help with how you price your expertise. And that's why I went down a bunny trail, you might say, ended up writing a book about it and have really gotten passionate about this work. Here's the thing. I think a lot of expertise service providers end up talking about their business and pricing their work as if it were a can of dog food. I don't mean that in a negative way because they do great work, but their pricing makes them come across as commodities. The way they talk about their business makes them come across as replaceable, as a commodity. And I don't believe people that have spent the kind of years they've spent in their work, in their business, are commodities. But that's the way they come across when they position themselves and when they price. I have what I call red flags of inadequate pricing, about 10 of them, but here are 6 that are pretty prevalent. Pricing by the hour. When I see that, that's a sign of inadequate pricing. Pricing one price for all clients, same price for all clients. If I see pricing that way, it's pricing that's inadequate. Working too hard for too little money. When someone tells me that they're working too hard for too little money, they've probably got a pricing problem. When 100% of your clients are saying yes, your price is too low. You need to have a certain number of people saying no to know that your price is where it ought to be. If you're not offering options, so if you're not giving clients different ways to engage with you, good, better, best, small, medium, large. That's the idea. When you're talking about you and your expertise and your qualifications and whatnot, and not the problems that you solve for clients, you probably got a pricing problem. And when I say talking, I mean, what does your website say? What do your social media posts say? And if they're about you, you may have a pricing problem. Here's the fundamental disconnect. See, we see our value as expertise service providers in our credentials and our experience, the work that we do, the deliverables, and that's not the way clients see it. Clients are looking at the outcomes of what we do for them. What can I do that I couldn't do before? And how much is that worth to me? What does that mean to me? And that's an entirely different matter than how we often see our own value, because we see the intricacies of our business, the internals of our business, and we don't have our heads into the heads of our clients. And the antidote for this for me is what I call the generosity mindset. It's getting out of old mindsets about how we are focused on the mindsets that hold us back. Mindsets like imposter syndrome and inadequacy and comparison, and focus on the hopes, needs, and wants of clients. And when we do that, what happens is it's a shift that changes everything about how we think about our business, how we position it, how we price, changes our confidence. So instead of billing by the hour, what I do is help folks get to pricing by the outcome. Pricing to value, the value of the outcome that you're delivering. That one of the pushbacks I get from a lot of professional services providers is a lot of them are introverts and they don't like the idea of being too salesy. Well, it's not about being salesy. It's about just having conversations. It's about having a best fit conversation. How is it, can I help you? What is your hope, want, need, desire that I can be helpful to you with, whether that benefits me in the short run or not. And introverts are actually, I think, better at these conversations than what they think. And I think that kind of mindset creates better clients in your practice and less churn. And again, it's not about what I do, it's about what the work that I do transforms for the client. And that's the way we have to think about how we talk to clients, and clients gravitate toward that. I'm a fundamental believer that our clients see more value in us than we see ourselves. I've never seen a client, let's talk about accountants, tax preparers. I've never seen a client write a review that said, I loved the way they filled out the tax return. I've never seen that. What do they say? They say, my accountant calls me back. My accountant talks in ways that I can understand what they're talking about. They actually call me proactively throughout the year. See, those are intangibles, and those intangibles are values that they see in us that we don't think a lot of sometimes. We don't really think about it. It's just what we do in our work. And that's where they see the value. It's not in the tax return. It's how we deliver the service that we deliver. So how do you get to that? And the way you get to that is through a value conversation, really more appropriately termed, probably a value dialogue, because you're constantly talking to your clients about this. The questions that open doors are questions like, what is driving this need right now? I mean, why do you need this particular service done today? Why not wait? Why not wait 6 months? What would happen if you did? Why didn't this get addressed a year ago? I mean, asking these questions get you answers that help you see where clients see value. And then I'm a big believer in why questions, the questions that get beyond just the surface. So what's the end game for all this? Why not leave things the way they are? Why now? Is the change really urgent? One of the questions I love is, what does your spouse think about this? It's amazing when you ask that question, where you really get to truth when you start asking questions like that. And then why me? I mean, most providers are scared to ask this question. And I ask the question, why me? Because I'm not the cheapest. Now, what have I done right there? I've put a flag in the ground with that client that I'm not the cheapest provider out there. And so if that's what their motivation is, we may not be a great fit. So here's your turn. I'd love if you want to share, feel free to unmute. What pricing challenges are you wrestling with that we can just talk about live? Wayne?
My biggest challenge is the coaching profession is set up on I would say, an archaic model, and it normally charges by the hour. They call it a session, but it's an hour. And the irony is, it seems like a really great buck, like $300 or $400 a session, but it doesn't cover the cost of finding, getting, servicing, and billing that client, which means that you sound like you're, on Wall Street and you're actually working for Walmart.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, here's the problem with pricing by the hour, beyond what you just mentioned, is that your expertise, your experience is not measured by the clock. Yet that's what we're talking about, right? When you price by the hour. And so I think the first thing to say is you've got to get to a point where you don't have an hourly rate. And yes, this will take a little bit of training of your clients to say, I don't have an hourly rate, and don't back down on that. And what you do is develop options on the way for clients to engage with you that don't involve an hourly rate. That it could be number of sessions, it could be the amount of interaction they have with you, it could be the amount of material that you share with them, and you gradate your options based on a good, better, best model, and you do it on a flat fee. And that's really the way to get out of that. So there's a lot more to it, obviously, but that's the short stroke of it. But it's really important to get out of hourly pricing, or all you are is a shoe cobbler. And there's only so many shoes that the shoe cobbler can cobble in a day. Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
So when you're building out a price and you're doing the fair part, you assess your costs to getting you there. So, it's almost like doing operating expenses or operational cost per square foot, and then you have your rent. Is it a bit of a mix between, okay, these are the costs to get there, here's the hourly rate I want to see back? Do you then strategize? Because if you're in the cobbler mode, you're looking, how do I do one to many? Do you realize that at a certain point in time you just ramp up and then you're going to go to another iteration and develop a new layer where you can train other people to do the same thing? In which case now it's the one to many, because now you can scale up, not be the only cobbler. You can have a whole bunch of people cobbling together. I won't do the shoe analogy much more. But then how do you match it so that it's a fit? And is it based on your audience? Like, if I sell yachts, I'm not selling you something for $2.99. I might move the decimal a lot more over to the right. And then it's not necessarily the dollar value that I'm selling, it's the package I'm selling. So how do you shape it depending on who you're selling to and what the outcome is and the volume?
Yeah, well, for most service providers, it's really generally a one-on-one kind of thing, right? And so it's really about having conversations to see where that client sees value and then positioning your offerings based on that value and pricing to that value. So let's just say that I'm in the expense reduction business. I help maybe a fractional CFO, and I'm going to help a client save $100,000 in their business. And maybe what the questions I need to be asking are, so what are you going to do with that $100,000 we're going to save? Well, I'm going to reinvest it in my business. How? How are you going to reinvest in your business? Well, I'm going to hire a new salesperson that I've been wanting to hire for a long time. That's great. So what is that salesperson going to do for you? How much business do you think they're going to bring in? I think probably $2 million. Wow, that's fantastic. That'll change your business. What is that worth to you? You see, the thing about it is we don't ask these questions. We don't dig deep enough. And what we find is if we dig deep enough, then maybe that 100,000 savings, that suddenly that willingness to buy that client has climbs because of the questions that we ask, the answers that they give us, and the value that both of us see together. So it's not so much, yes, it's important to cover your costs, but the problem is that service providers are anchored way too much on that and not enough on the value that clients see. And I have never had a situation where I worked with a client where value pricing didn't cover their cost and much, much more, because the value of your expertise is well above what the value of the inputs that go into that expertise are. Fran?
Thank you. So this is a real life case. I'm not going to change what I did, but I'll put it out there for the benefit of all. Okay. So what kind of thinking should one incorporate in deciding whether or not to make an offer that is on a retainer basis versus a lump sum for value? Okay. Now that's the question. Here's the scenario. So I have a practice where I work with people in career transition, and I actually do price based upon the level of position. So if it's a C-suite position, it's a bit more. If it's a professional role, it's in a different range. Overall, that whole process may be 3 weeks, it might be 2 weeks, or it could be 6, 7, or 8 months. So what I'm asking you is, what should one consider in terms of whether or not to say this ought to be on a month-to-month type retainer arrangement, or it is X, and then you plan some other way of payment, timing, or cadence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's the problem with retainer. The problem with retainer is that every month that client is ready to pay your invoice, they're having an internal conversation with themselves about whether they're seeing value and what's the term of the period that they're looking at. They're not looking at the entire engagement, they're looking at the previous month, right? So that's a bit of the problem. What you've got to look at is where in your engagements do you deliver the most value? What in terms of the timeline? And so what I would argue is probably based on the way you describe what you do, Francis, I would guess that you deliver a ton of value on the front and a ton of value at the end when they get that job, right? I mean, that's the ultimate, right? But you deliver a ton right on the front. But see, someone that's maybe gone 6 months, 9 months, they haven't gotten that job they wanted because of their work with you, they're going to see they may think differently about that value in the middle of that timeline than what they do at the beginning or the end. So what's important is to be checking in with them constantly about, hey, am I delivering more value than what you're paying in fee? And I think that's an important question to ask clients along the way. And if they're not, then you go into the mode you're talking about, which is you continue to work with somebody until they see that value. And that, again, that requires a constant dialogue. But I think the answer to your question is really, how do you charge? Is really, you got to try to match up the price and the time that the client writes the check with the value that they're getting. And that speaks to the problem with retainers. Retainers work great for bookkeepers, because every month something's happening. They don't work quite as great for all the rest of us. Well, that's what I can give you in about 2 minutes of answering that question. So,
Well, I think it's fantastic because
thank
I actually had that conversation with the person. I asked him if it was something else that he wanted to see because there were other services that could also be provided. But as we know, a job search, there's a lot that goes into the viability of landing a role. But he was very good. He said he was very satisfied because he gets coached on his leadership skill in his current role as too, because that was something he needed to develop. I want to do better next time when I come up on the situation so that it's not consternation. So this is very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more things. So I think it's important to give people choices. People love choices. And our clients see different value in us. Not all clients see the same value. Let's just put it like that. So some want the basic version of what we offer. Some want the premium and more. They want everything you can give them. It's important to give people choices. And we see this again and again. We see it at restaurants. We see it at car companies position their models of cars this way. People are used to this. And so I think it's important not to give just one option as a way to work with you, but 3 choices. And then how do you start? It's really important to analyze client reviews and testimonials for the intangibles that you hear. Yeah, I mentioned the accountant example, but listen for what clients say about why they do business with you. Ask, why do you do business with me? Why have you been with me all these years? And they'll tell you things that you don't expect. And those things you don't expect are intangibles where they see value, and that will help you in your pricing. Develop your capacity for questioning. I tell clients the extent you're willing to have a value conversation and keep asking questions is the extent to which you're able to price more effectively. I mentioned good, better, best options, and then price increases. That's a really important part of effective pricing, is having pricing as a strategy and spending as much time on pricing every year as you plan and think about your business as you do on marketing and any other aspect of your business. This is my book. If you're interested in learning more, it's again called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. And again, I think confidence is a major piece of this. It's getting over the mindsets that hold us back. A testimonial to me has basically 3 parts. The hell they were in when they found, I'm going to say Bernie, what Bernie did, and the heaven they live in now because of what Bernie did. It's a 3-act play. And so what I advise people to do, and a lot of people are reluctant to do this, is ask, first of all, and then most clients have a blank page syndrome when it comes to writing reviews or writing testimonials. They don't know what to say. And that's the reason they never get it done. And so what my advice is to offer to write it for them and that they can edit it and then post it themselves. And most clients will say yes to that. And the ones that don't say yes to that, they're going to probably write it, or they just don't intend to do one. But the clients that you can ask to do that, and if they say yes, then you can write it with that in mind, with that 3-act play. Hell, what the work did, and then heaven. And you write it that way, and then it addresses the deficiencies that we all see in not just no reviews, but reviews that really don't say anything other than that John is a great guy. Well, that doesn't say anything. That's not compelling enough for people to want to hire me. These reviews need to be a what's in it for me kind of thing for the client.
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.